All right, what's up, everybody? Steven here, the Horror Freak 85. Welcome to episode 182 of the House of Horrors, where we welcome back Jeff Kirkendall. How are you tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back, Stephen.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's been a while, so glad you got a chance to stop by because obviously you got we've seen a lot of movies recently come out and some upcoming ones you got, so we'll definitely be talking about those for sure.
Oh, cool.
So, and it looks like a few people have already popped up. So whenever you guys got questions or comments, I'll put them up on the screen. So, um, like I said, you have been on a lot, so most of you are familiar with Scary Productions and you with Mark and everything. But for people who might be newer, can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings? Like what movies inspired you and actors that decided to get you into the business?
Well, I was always a big fan of movies in general. And when I was a teenager, I became a big fan of horror movies. Probably the most influential movie was the original Nightmare on Elm Street back in the mid 1980s. I saw it. I didn't see it in the theater. I actually saw it on VHS a couple of years after it came out. And I was really fascinated by that film. And then I started watching other movies from the 80s. And I became a big horror fan. I read the magazines, Fangoria, and so forth. And then I got interested in making movies probably about a decade later in the mid 1990s.
Since always a fan of movies and everything, did you take any writing classes or acting classes throughout your school years?
I did take a lot of writing classes throughout college. Yeah, some of them actually were film related. I took a film arts class. I wrote a 30-minute drama for that class. And I actually used all that material for my first feature, which I produced right after graduating from college in the mid-1990s, called Terror of the Master. The original script was a straight drama, half-an-hour drama. And I took that material and added on another hour and made a feature out of it. And it was a horror film. And as far as acting goes, I also started taking acting courses in the early 1990s. One day I just wondered to myself whether I could, acting things like be on television or be in movies, because I was a big fan of all that kind of stuff. So I started taking theater classes probably for about a decade or so. And I was able to utilize that when I started making movies too.
Mm. Let's see. Oh, my mom was wondering where you went to college.
I went to a few schools, actually. My first school was the Junior College of Albany. Then I went to Siena College in Latham for a couple of years. And after that was the College of St. Rose. That's where I took communications. And that was the time I got interested in movies. And I really liked the communications program. I got to take some video production courses. That was another key thing. At the time, for the communications program, you had to take a couple of technical courses, and the choices were radio production and TV production. And I chose TV production, which was really video production, and that was back in the VHS days. So I learned to shoot video on VHS and also edit video. They had the linear editing decks. Where you would cut the two tapes together before the computers took over. So it was a little more challenging at the time, but it was a good thing to learn. And it kind of came together with my acting as well, because I was getting interested in that at the time too. So everything kind of came together at that time.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Terror of the Firmer. Sorry, I say that right. As one of your stories there, are there any stories like that you'd written in high school or college that you've made into movies that we've seen, or maybe you plan to hopefully make a feature from it?
I don't think I have any other old material. That script in college was really my first writing that was kind of geared at fiction, kind of fiction writing. I did some writing for, I think, a course called The Short Story before that, but I don't have any other older material. That was the oldest thing that goes back. I started writing scripts after that too. I wrote some short films after that, but nothing old. Everything going forward is going to be new material. So,
mm-hmm. All right. And of course, we know the trailers come out recently and everything for the Stalking, which you had written and directed with Mark Polonia. Besides keeping busy acting, have you been working on anything else aside writing that we can maybe keep an eye out for?
But yeah, the Stalking's coming out. The Stalking's coming out officially November 12th. The Stalking was my second co-production with Mark, meaning that it was a script that I wrote. The first one was Return to Splatter Farm, which was a sequel to his the Polonia Brothers 1987 movie. Stalking was the second one. And we recently completed a third one, which I'll call a co-production, another script that I wrote, and we've filmed it already. I expect it to come out in October. I won't give it away, but it's a new installment in an established indie horror franchise. So that's our third co-production. I think people will be kind of surprised by it.
By that, I mean, I know you can't say we'll spoil it, but I'm wondering if it like Amityville in space and a certain Father Beta, hopefully. Us fans can hope anyway. We'll just leave it at that. But but regardless of what it is, I'm sure it'll be quite interesting. So we'll be looking forward to that for sure.
Thank you.
And since the Stalking was based on a shorter anthology story, how is it for you to see your short story become a feature length?
Oh, I'm very excited about The Stalking. Yes. Yes, you're right. The Stalking was partially based on my short film called The Bad Flower, which eventually became one of the segments in an anthology feature, Halloween Horror Tales, that Sterling Entertainment released in 2018. The Bad Flower was one of the stories, and that was about killer plants, sunflowers, and vines, and so forth. And that was an inspiration for The Stalking. I wanted to use that idea in a bigger movie. And then the other inspiration for The Stalking was it's sort of a follow-up to the Polonia Brothers movie Halloween Night from 2008, I believe it is. It has some connections to that movie. It's kind of an unofficial sequel. There's a returning character from Halloween Night, and there's a scarecrow, of course, in The Stalking, which was also in Halloween Night. So it's a standalone movie for people who haven't seen it yet, but it also is tied to the Halloween Night movie. And when we premiered The Stalking in Albany, New York, in November of last year, we showed it on a double bill with Halloween Night because it was my idea to put the two movies together back to back. And that was really exciting.
Yes, it was. That was cool. For people who haven't seen it, though, I mean, it doesn't really matter though if they see Halloween Night or not. But of course, they'll get the reference if they have seen it. So,
right, that was the idea, to make it a standalone movie for people who haven't seen that one, but for people who have, they'll recognize a particular character in addition to the scarecrow as well.
Of course. And the last question on The Stalking there, what was the best part while filming it and the most challenging?
The best part. I had a lot of fun. There were a lot of scenes that were a lot of fun to make. I don't know if I can name one in particular. It was interesting working with the big cast. I guess that would be the most challenging thing. It was a really big cast, and we had a day when we had most of the cast there. You were there, of course, and it was challenging because we had a lot of scenes to film and a lot of cast sitting around waiting their turn, and a lot of people to work with. We usually don't have the big casts there at the same time. In a lot of the movies, we work with a few people at a time at most. But that was really interesting, shooting a lot of scenes in one day with a big cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I mean, from what I've seen, besides being a part of it, there were a lot of people usually than in certain movies that I have seen in the past. So yeah, that was fun. And the rainy night too. Can't forget that. That was crazy. Had to wait for that.
Definitely, that was most challenging. Yes.
Definitely so. Recently, Once Upon a Time in Amityville came out. Can you tell us a little bit about your character Regis and how was it working on a Western?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Yes, we filmed that one. That was the movie we did right before the stalking. We filmed at a real Western museum, so all the locations were very authentic. There was even a train there sitting on the tracks, and we used that too. So it was very interesting. There were actually people walking through. We would stop because they didn't close down the place. There were people walking through. We would stop filming and let them walk around, and then when they left, continue filming. It was very laid back. We were able to use the whole place. Locations were great, and it's about the ancient Amityville evil that pops up in this in in Amityville back in the days of the Old West, and the residents of the town have been possessed by this demonic force, and I'm one of the people there, and the Regis character is kind of I guess kind of the good guy in a way because he's obeying the evil force like the other residents, but he doesn't want to harm the bounty hunter and the other guy who come in, and so it's kind of a partly good character, but yeah, it's a really interesting movie. I think people will like that one a lot.
Mhm. And do you have any favorite westerns yourself? And did you pull any inspiration from any character?
No, I can't think of anything I was thinking of for that movie or that character. I like a few of the modern westerns. I was a big fan of the Young Guns movies in the 1980s. Uh, I thought that movie with Drew Barrymore, Bad Girls, was pretty cool too. That was an all-female western. So I like kind of some of the modern ones, but there are a lot of classics too. Too many to name though. I watched some westerns. Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Mhm. And I know another one that should be coming out soon, Jurassic Exorcist, another dinosaur movie there. So how was that for you? And I think that comes out the 24th of September, I think I want to say, or October, I forget.
Yes, the 24th. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that was shot. I remember that was shot during the pandemic, and I was originally offered a sizable role in that, and I turned it down because it was during the pandemic, during kind of a bad time during the pandemic. So I turned it down due to safety reasons. So I didn't go to Pennsylvania. So I wound up filming a small cameo from home for that one. So that's my part in that movie. That's the leads in that one. Titus Himmelberger is one of the leads, and some of the other Polonia regulars.
Mhm.
But I only had a small part in that one. But I did see the finished film, and it's very entertaining. I think people like it a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, the dinosaur ones are always interesting. They kind of remind me of like the older 60s, 70s, like the stop motion, stuff like that. So I really
Oh,
enjoy seeing that type of filming. So that's what it
cool.
reminds me of. So, and speaking of like the dinosaurs, Saurians 2 that you were in, and as well as Cocaine Werewolf that recently came out, as well as others I can't think of right now, but I know there's scenes where you and James always portray like the shooters or hunters going out, um, which is always a fun part. Is that always like planned for you to be the hunters? Is that like the role you two like to play?
I think that was coincidental, but you're right. Those two movies, it is almost the same type of scene. We play hunters in both of those scenes, and they're in Saurians, it's towards the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
In Cocaine Werewolf, it's in the first quarter, but they're similar characters. That is funny. I was thinking of that after we did Cocaine Werewolf because we did Saurians prior to that. I don't think it's intentional. Well, actually, I should take that back. The thing is, those two scenes, Mark Polonia came to upstate New York and filmed both of those scenes in upstate New York rather than Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up and it turned out to be the same type of scenes. We wanted to give James a role in both of those, so he came up and yeah, we both filmed in upstate New York for both of those scenes and turned out to be the same type of thing.
It's always crazy because there's like some incident, whether it's your fault or both being attacked or whatever. So it's kind of something we might even see in the future. Maybe just like, got to be the hunters.
Well, James and I have been in a lot of movies together.
Well, of course,
yeah. It goes back to before we were working with Mark. We've produced a lot of movies, James Grohl and Tim Hatch and I, and James and I, and Tim as well, were in a lot of scenes together even prior to working with Mark. And then, we've done a lot of movies for Mark and had scenes together. So it's a long list. So
let's see what else was come out recently. Motorboat was another cool release, which most of these are on Tubi too. Anyone who wants to watch them, or released through Wild Eye. I noticed the second time I watched it, just as like a little refresher, that watching the boat at some points, it looks like it's like a full size boat, and then otherwise like a little toy remote. And I was thinking to myself, like, because I know it had maybe some supernatural powers where like vanishing, like, would you consider that was like the point to show like it could also like shrink and attack? Do you think?
yeah, I think you got it right. Yeah, there was a model used in that. Yeah, I think you're right on target with that. Yeah, it's called, what do they call that? Forced perspective, I believe. Toho would famously use that for their Godzilla movies. Forced perspective. Yeah, it's pretty funny though. Yeah, Motorboat's a good one.
Yeah. Like at first I wasn't just thinking, I'm like, oh, it's a little toy. But as a second watch, I'm like, well, maybe that was done intentionally just because to like show it can shrink as like a superpower because it is a supernatural boat. And that's how it like got away from when it was being chased and throughout the movie and all that. So.
Yes, yeah. People like that one. That turned out to be pretty popular. And, there's a guy who writes novels based on some of those movies. I think that was the first one I saw him advertise. Brian Barry, Motorboat. He did a novel for that one, and then he's done some since then. So yeah, but it was a cool movie.
And you playing the law enforcement in that one, and Tim being the priest, how was that for you, the switch on that, portraying that character?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Yes, yeah, I think that was a good idea. It's probably best that I don't play any other priest besides Father Benna, but maybe something will come up. But we don't want to confuse people. But that was fun. Tim's played the priest a few times too, and that was a nice juxtaposition. Yeah, that was fun.
Let's see. I know you're talented both in front and behind of the camera. Do you prefer one over the other?
I like both for different reasons. The acting's fun because you only have one hat to wear. As an actor, my only job is to portray the character as truthfully as possible, so I can focus on one thing, prepare, and then come on set and focus on one thing mainly. Although people on Mark's Polonia films do help out behind the scenes as well. And then as a director, it's different because for indie movies, you often wear multiple hats, and you're in charge more, and you can see a production unfolding in front of you. And that's a satisfying feeling to see one of your productions get done. And I also like to, as a filmmaker, I get a good feeling seeing other people shine in my movies, seeing other people do well playing characters that I may have written for them, and it's really exciting to see other people shine. For example, in the movie that I couldn't tell you, the one that's coming out possibly in October, I wrote the main character, the lead character for one of our actresses, Anna Dayton, who was on The Stalking. And it's a really good character, and she really crushed it on. And I think it'll be an interesting movie, and her heroine character is really great. And that's an example, watching other people do really well, shine in your movies is gratifying.
And also, I always notice like certain things in movies, for Motorboat, like I like to see like the scenery too, or background, or maybe nods, or just certain props sometimes. And I noticed that Barney had an old typewriter and phone instead of a modern computer. Does that belong to anyone on set there who brought that prop in?
Let me see, the typewriter. I'm thinking that's something that Mark had, because we shot those office scenes in his hobby house back in the backyard, and we turned it into an office. And I think that was there. I know I didn't bring that, so I'm guessing that was Mark Polonia's. But I like I like props like that. That's a lot of fun when you see something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, was that your typewriter? And you like to type stories on it still? It's great. I remember having my typewriter that I was always typing stories on and stuff. So, but
Right,
I was
right.
just wondering, a little nostalgic, who had that. So that's
Yeah, I used to have the word processor before the computers. I used the word processor. So,
uh, yeah. Let's see, what was some other recent ones that came out you were in? On Fossum now, I believe, is not Texas Chainsaw, the last Chainsaw Massacre you were in as well. That's one that was out. So another slasher movie. I know you. I can't remember if I asked this before, but slashers, creatures, and shark movies and all that. You have a preference, or you just enjoy them all?
well, as an actor, I say yes to everything pretty much.
Mhm.
But I am a big slasher movie fan. Like I said, I grew up in the 1980s. I'm an 80s child, and I like all the slasher films from the 1980s. The franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. The original Prom Night is one of my top three movies. Love that movie. That's a great slasher. Terror Train from the 1980s, another great one. Both Jamie Lee Curtis movies, by the way. So yeah, I like those a lot. And the first slasher movie, I worked on, I guess, was the Die Laughing story from my own movie, Halloween Horror Tales, and then I also did Camp Blood 3 with Mark Maloney. That was one of the first ones. I had met Mark, and I had worked on Empire of the Apes. That was the first movie I did with Mark Polonia. And that very same year, he told me he was working on slasher film Camp Blood 3, which became Camp Blood First Slaughter. And I said, "Oh, can I come to Pennsylvania and help out with that? I love slasher films." And he let me come down, and I wound up playing a part in it. But yeah, they're always very exciting to be a part of, as a movie fan.
Yes, getting killed is always a good time. Is there any death that you haven't been killed yet? Is there a way that you would like to see a character meet his demise?
Oh, I never thought of that because, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've my characters have gotten killed in a lot of movies, as a lot of other people have too. I never thought of a specific way, but whatever comes along is fine. I don't have any preference.
Let's see. Oh, Will's in here. How's it going? He's saying great show, and he's getting some echo feedback. I wonder if that's on my end. I don't know.
Oh, I can turn mine down a little bit. I don't know. Let's see. Let me see. Yeah, I heard a little bit.
Yeah.
Still hearing it?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Testing 1, 2. I sound okay on my end, I think.
I hear a little bit of echo after I talk for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, sorry about that, but at least enjoying the show so far, and thank you for stopping by. Hope you and Julie are doing well.
I'll bring mine down a little bit more. Maybe that will help. Hold on.
Okay. He said it's fixed.
Can you still hear me?
Yep. So he just gave the thumbs up fixed. Alrighty then. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, echoes are annoying. That's technology for you. I think that's why Barney liked the typewriters and the old school phone so much better. No feedback there.
Exactly. Sound okay now?
Yeah, he said we're good now. So I'm sorry, what were you saying about I think you were done about Camp Blood 3. I know you were talking about that a second ago before the echo. So
right, that was the first slasher movie I worked on with Mark. Camp Blood 3, it became Camp Blood First Slaughter. And that's when I learned about the Camp Blood movie series, actually.
And I know a few of your movies you've played some villainous characters such as like Klaus in the shark movies there, and Mr. Mallory, I believe, was for Teddy Scare. Now they're two completely different characteristic, as where Klaus is like the scientist and Mr. Mallory, he's more like greedy, cares about money, and no matter what happens to other people. How was the challenge from switching to each one there? Do you have a favorite between the two?
Well, Klaus is kind of a over the top, campy, uh, yeah, kind of a funny villain. That's a very like theatrical acting. It was challenging to learn a German accent for that one. I did kind of a German American accent for that one, and yeah, he's very theatrical. He's waving his arms around and looking excited. Whereas Mr. Mallory is just kind of a mean, conniving type. So that was a bit more of a serious role. So you kind of approach them differently. I get the scripts, and yeah, I learn the parts and think about the character in relation to the story, and then the performance kind of comes out from there.
Mm-hmm. All right. What was I saying there? And Sharkula has come out since we've last talked, so at least we can talk a little bit more about that, portraying Dracula and all. How was that for you? I mean, Dracula has been around for a long time, big inspirational role. How was it playing him for you in your way, and what was the best part?
Well, that was really interesting and exciting because, I never considered playing Dracula or a vampire character before. And when Mark sent me the script, and the first thing I said to him was, "Mark, you realize now that usually when you see Dracula in a movie, it's tall, dark, and handsome, dark features." And I said, "I'm obviously not that." And he said, "Oh, no, you'll be fine. You'll do it. Go ahead. Yeah, you'll be fine. Do that." And I said, "All right, I'll give it a try." And so I looked at the script, and I thought it was maybe had some similarities to the Klaus character. So I kind of approached it similar. I did a bit of the German, European type accent, but I pulled it way back, whereas Klaus is way over the top and again campy and funny. And I kind of pulled that down and did it a little bit more serious, and I just tried to think about how Dracula, how he would approach things and how he would see things. And it turned out to be a lot of fun. That movie definitely got a lot of attention, a lot of reception, and he's definitely the most theatrical character in the movie, maybe except for Renfield, maybe. But so that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I did it, and it's nice to be able to say that I portrayed Dracula on my resume, basically.
Right. And it's been a while since I watched it, but as for like the effects for the vampire teeth, now were they the ones that you just put in? Were they made to fit your teeth, or what type of teeth prop were used for that?
Okay, I think I'm trying to remember. I think I may have purchased kind of one of the high end teeth that with the kind of the glue that sticks on from one of our theatrical stores here. Because I had some experience with my own movies with vampire teeth before, and they're really tricky. When we did Terror of the Master, they would often come out, but basically I learned a lot about how to work with them. And so by the time I did Sharkula, I knew the type I wanted to buy. I believe I did buy a pair of my own because I wanted to make sure they looked good and stayed in, and you have to get used to also speaking with the teeth in too. Although in Sharkula, the most of the scenes did not involve speaking with the teeth. Most of the scenes I didn't have them on. I didn't really have them on until a few scenes towards the end, and they were more action scenes. So there wasn't a lot of dialogue with the teeth. So that wasn't too difficult as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember like when I was younger for Halloween and stuff, when I was a vampire, I had bought those like ones that you put in that were kind of cheap, hard to talk and everything. And at one convention, I wish I can find them. I know I actually had some teeth where they took the mold of my teeth and they fit it where I can just slide them right on and you can still talk. And then I've seen the ones that like retract, like if you like flick your tongue or they stay in there pretty well. So I should like a pair of those. Those are pretty interesting how they do that.
Yeah, they are tricky. They are tricky, especially speaking. You have to get used to it because it would always feel like when I'm speaking, I'm always thinking my tongue was going to knock that out or something. But they do stay in pretty well if you get decent ones. They really do.
Mm-hmm. And since we're speaking of like props and costumes, do you have any other favorite costumes that or wardrobes that you've worn in any movies?
Let's see now. Probably the most burdensome was burdensome was the costumes in Empire of the Apes. Those were specially designed masks, really heavy masks with the mouths that moved, and a lot of bulky clothing. I remember that. And I've told the story before, but we shot the original one in the middle of summer, and it was almost 90 degrees and so forth. So that's a memory I always remember. But that's a lot of costuming for the Empire of the Apes movies.
Yeah, that's always the thing. Whenever time of season movies are shot, and if certain costumes, that can always be another challenge there for an actor, of course.
Sure.
What from any props of any movies that you still have in your own personal collection?
Let me see. I think I have some odds and ends from some of my early short films. Nothing major. I think I have. There's a newspaper clipping with an ad for an old nightclub that used to be in Albany, New York, that you see in Night Therapy. The therapist, when he picks up a piece of paper, there's an ad for a club called the QE2 from Albany that I had used in the movie. And the club is long since gone. We shot some of London After the movie in London After Midnight in that club too. Bruce Hallenbeck's movie. I think I still have that. And then just some other little knickknacks I'll come across every so often. I'll say, oh, that was in this movie. That was in this movie. And I also have a lot of hats and clothing from movies I've done for Mark still in the trunk. And I try not to reuse them, but some of them are, pretty interesting. It's tempting to want to use another hat again or something like that.
Yeah. And also, we spoke briefly about before when I mentioned Once Upon a Time in Amityville, you mentioned the location and everything that you found interesting, that museum. In either any past filming or any upcoming locations that are newer that you enjoyed? I mean, I know a lot of the same locations, but if any newer ones?
Yes. I can't tell you about the movie yet, but we took, from one of Mark's movies, we took a trip to Ocean City, Maryland, and filmed the movie. A lot of it was filmed on the beach. So that movie will probably come out next year has a lot of beach locations, which you don't normally see, rather than, stock footage shot or something like that. So we shot a lot on the beach, and that was a lot of fun. That was different. I hadn't done that before. It was kind of a part vacation, part filming trip.
Right, because I know a lot of it's filmed at like around Mark's location and Ken's and all that. And it's cool that you got to travel. You hoping maybe in the future might consider like traveling to more locations, or just pretty much keep it local?
We had a good time on the trip, so we're hoping to do another movie, take another road trip, and not necessarily Ocean City, Maryland again, but something interesting like that, because it was fun, and it was also a different location and different filming experience. So we would like to do that again, definitely.
And let's see, Mummy Shark is also coming out soon. And you've done a bunch of shark movies. Is there anything besides sharks, that creature you'd like to portray in, or any upcoming plan? Or what type of shark movie would you do? I'm sorry, I worded that wrong. Like cocaine shark, Ouija shark. Do you have any like shark ideas to continue that?
Well, the movie coming out in October may have a shark in it, possibly. But besides that, I was going to say too that Mummy Shark is kind of interesting. People might find this interesting. We shot in Pennsylvania, but we shot Mummy Shark completely on a soundstage. It was the only time we've shot some other movies using sound stages, but this was completely soundstage for Mummy Shark. And the jungle locations were all a set built and everything. So it was definitely different being just in one actual like theater stage the whole time for it. So that was interesting. So that was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed all the shark movies. I can't think of what else we would do, but like I said, the one in October, it does have involved. It's not completely a shark movie, but it does have a shark in it at times. So yeah. So
Well, it's a beach, so yeah, that'll be cool. Well, then again, we've had land sharks, flying sharks, sky sharks, so it doesn't really matter much anymore.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, how it's kept going with the shark movies. They keep coming out with them. Yeah. Well, it's given us something to do, anyways, right?
There's been so many. I mean, besides your guys' shark movies, I mean, shark movies in general seem to be pretty popular. What do you think that the attraction to that is? Why do people enjoy them so much?
Well, I mean, originally, of course, with Jaws and other type movies like that, serious shark movies, it was the scare factor. I remember Jaws scared the heck out of me when I saw it in the theater at 8 years old. I definitely was not ready for that movie. And then, years later with Sharknado, it became more a humor thing. It was a different type of movie. And I think the indie filmmakers would gravitated towards that type of movie. So, they're just interesting. It's an interesting type of danger, or in some movies, it's sort of comedy as well. So people seem to enjoy the killer animal movies. And I remember I saw the movie Orca from the late '70s. That was a killer whale movie. I thought that was pretty interesting. That was a real dramatic movie. But yeah, people are interested in that type of story. Dangerous animals and so forth. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So pretty much like, besides, we know people like to be scared, and then switching over to, comedy is a good way to, keep what you enjoy and just continue on. And I don't think it'll end. As long as all of us independent horror people are out there writing, coming out with ideas, I'm sure there'll be a lot of good ones coming out to be entertained. Let's see. I think I already put that up there. Yeah. Let's see. Any other movies that or anything to keep an eye out that I forgot to mention? I'm trying to think. We got Last Chainsaw Massacre, Cocaine Werewolf. Was there any ones I left out that just came out? I think I'm trying to remember there.
Well, I could plug another one because it has been mentioned. There's a movie coming out that was produced by Frank Durant, who's the guy behind the Rip Van Winkle movies.
Oh, Rip Van Winkle, yes.
Oh yeah, Rip Van Winkle. The second one is on streaming now. We did 3 of them. The first one's been on streaming for a while, and Rip Van Winkle 2 is on streaming now. And I believe the third one's coming out from Wild Eye, I'm told, on streaming this year too. But we shot another movie that Frank was behind called The Girl Who Wore Yellow Lace, which is part murder mystery, part giallo movie. That's an Italian type of horror kind of murder mystery slasher type movie. It has some giallo elements in it. And I'm told that's going to be coming out this year. That stars Alyssa Page, who was in the opening scene to Cocaine Werewolf. And it's kind of like I see it as kind of like those 1990s erotic thrillers that you would see on Cinemax, those type of movies. It has that feel to it, and it has a cameo by Lynn Lowry. She did a really nice scene in the movie. Okay. And Mark worked on that movie. I worked on it. I play a police officer in that movie. Yeah, it's a good murder mystery. To me, it has kind of, like I said, a 1990s type, suspense thriller type of a feel to it. And I think people will really like that one. I think it's coming out probably pretty soon. And that's from SRS Cinema, so yeah, be on the lookout for that one.
Okay. And any plans for either any upcoming conventions or film festivals, or maybe any screenings of anything that's coming out?
Mark Polonia, myself, and Tim Hatch were invited to be guests at a festival, a film convention called Gross Fest next year. I believe it's somewhere around August. We were at another convention, Mark, Tim, and I, and Mark bumped into the guy who runs Gross Fest, and he recognized Mark and invited Mark to the next year's festival. And so we're scheduled to do that festival next year.
I think I've heard of Gross Fest. Where is that located?
I believe it's Pennsylvania. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. I think it's in Pennsylvania. And it is, I know it's convention that's geared towards indie filmmakers. I know a lot. I saw some of the posts about this year's convention, and there were mostly indie people posting about it.
I think now I know I heard of it because I think Steve Rudinsky and Jessa Flux I think were guests, and some of them. And I remember what else. Because recently I saw that Air Fryer Slaughter actually won in a film festival in France as best horror movie. And I myself did a voice over the phone for the Pizza Guy. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but then I saw you're listed on it as well. Are you an actual character in it or do a voice? I know I saw you listed as Jokey, I believe your character was called.
I shot a segment for it, one of those at-home segments. But actually, I was in Pennsylvania working on a movie with Mark, and so while I was down there, I had Mark shoot it for me in the studio. But it's one of the parts that are added to the movie, and I don't know that much about it more than you do. I think my segment looks like something that would be on a television, like a commercial of some sort, I think. And I had not seen the movie yet either. So, but it was a lot of fun to do. I got to wear a rather loud, I picked out a rather loud shirt and a rather outlandish hat for it. A large Mexican sombrero that had been sitting in my back of my car for the last decade or so. I used that for it.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a role in the movie or like an add-in or new. I mean, they always have those little throw-ins in between too, which is always fun to see. Those can be quite humorous as well. All right, let's see. I got a question here. It says, "Hey Jeff, which horror movie is your most favorite that you've seen?"
Well, the original Nightmare on Elm Street is still near and dear to my heart because it's the movie that got me interested in horror movies. I like the movie that came out 10 years after that, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. That's my other one. That's my other favorite installment in the series. That's right up there with the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Love that movie. It predated Scream and the whole idea behind Scream, and I think it's actually a better movie than Scream. But it's really I really like seeing. As a horror fan, I really like seeing those group of people play themselves in a movie. That was really thrilling to me at the time. Wes Craven's A New Nightmare.
I remember watching that for the first time, and then the idea of crossing the movie into reality, that was really clever. Man, I wish I could have met Wes Craven sometime at that convention. That would have been awesome to meet him. He's incredible work.
Yeah, I saw him at a Fangoria convention in the 1990s. He was a guest at one of the Weekend of Horror shows in New York City. I don't think I waited in line to get an autograph, but I watched him do a talk on stage, and it was really neat. Yeah, that was cool. Mm-hmm. They were promoting that movie at the time, actually.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember while you were there, what was something that stood out during the Q&A to you that you found interesting while being there with Wes Craven? How was it?
Yeah, that was one of my first horror conventions that I went to as a fan. It was Weekend of Horrors, Fangoria Weekend of Horrors in New York City. And the thing that got me to go, I would always see the ads in the back of Fangoria for the conventions coming up, but that particular one had all the Nightmare on Elm Street people that, like Heather Langenkamp was there, Wes Craven, Robert Englund, they were all there at that one. So I was just thrilled listening to these people on the stage in front of me. And I don't remember if I asked a question, and I'm probably too nervous to ask them anything. But it was just exciting seeing those people. And I was always a big fan of that. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, Robert's awesome. I mean, he's always so great because, he always interacts with the fans, and he even asks you guys or us questions, and just great guy to have a conversation with. And it's always a pleasure meeting him and Heather and all of them. And so,
yeah, they've always been very nice. I've talked to some of them over the years at conventions, and I remember Robert Englund. What they would do at the Fangoria convention is after the guest would do their presentation for half an hour, they would put them at a table to sign autographs. And I remember Roberts was towards the end of the evening, and they put him behind the table. And it got really late, and they were ready to close up. They actually turned the lights off, but he stayed and waited until every person in line went through. And I was, really impressed by that. And then And then I remember talking to many years later, Heather Langenkamp was a guest at, I think it was the Chiller Theater show in New Jersey. And she was really nice. And I remember she was charging much less for pictures than anybody else, like $5, where everyone else was charging $20 and $30. I thought that was nice, but yeah. But I talked to her, and she had done an indie movie called Fugitive Mind that was produced by Fred Olin Ray, which I had seen. And the highlight the highlight of my conversation was with her was to tell her that I had been in an indie movie, Amityville Death House, also produced by Fred Olin.
Small world.
So she said, "Oh, that's great. That's great. I love indie movies."
It's like it always comes full circle. Someone knows someone. When I remember, I was friends with Camden Toy from Buffy. He passed away about a year or two ago. But I worked with him a lot at conventions, and at one convention we even joked someone thought I was his son, and so we like played that off. And I had met Eileen Dietz also at another convention. We were talking. She asked if I've been to other conventions and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't my first. And I said I've worked with people from Buffy, such as Camden. She's like, oh, yeah, we're actually really good friends. We share the same agent and live down the street. I'm like, wow. I was like, hey, we should give him a call. And she's like, yeah. So that was fun. It's just whoever you run into. And Jeff Wadlow, who directed Cry Wolf with Jared Padalecki. I don't know if you remember that movie, Cry Wolf, or not.
I did see that. Yes, absolutely. I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, like when I was talking to him and Never Back Down and stuff, I had mentioned Cry Wolf, and it's just fun. I mean, there's always everybody is somehow connected in some way. It's like what is it, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? You go back and connect.
Exactly. Yes.
And so also speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street, of course can't beat the classic. No, I mean that'll always be the best. But what'd you think of the remake?
I went in really wanting to dislike it, but I had mixed feelings on it. I thought that the scenes that they tried to recreate were pretty poor, but I thought the scenes that were original to that film were not bad. Some of them, like there's a scene where Freddy's in the supermarket. He appears and disappears. I thought some of those scenes were pretty cool. So I was kind of mixed on it, but I know. I don't know. I also didn't like what they did to the Nancy character. She was very unlikable, and I think it took away a lot from the movie. But I'm a big fan of the original, so it would probably be hard to please me. But I didn't hate it though.
So. Yeah, that's the thing with either reboots or remakes or whatever you want to call it. Like being a fan of the original, and it's kind of hard to top it. I mean, of course, they're doing their best, and some of them are entertaining, but other times it's like it didn't need to be remade.
Exactly.
Views on that, like there was I think the last time that Robert Englund did like Freddy, what was it, the Goldbergs? I don't know, where he had a dream or watched the movie that he was on the show. Did you catch it?
It's tough with a character like that. It's easier. It's been easier to remake some of the other horror franchises like Friday the 13th and Halloween because the character doesn't speak. Whereas with Freddy, he's so distinctively Robert Englund. It's tough to present someone else to the fans. That's what it is.
Yeah, because with his wit and jokes and just the way he portrays himself, it's kind of hard to live up to such a legend. And so, there were some people who were saying that like Kevin Bacon, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, should play Freddy Krueger. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think he would portray him as a character?
Well, I mean, he's a great actor. I can't imagine how he would do it, but I'm sure he would bring something interesting to it. He always seems to do that. So, I'm sure it would be interesting to say the least. I don't know how people would receive it, but I had heard that rumor. So, but yeah, that's a harder franchise to revive because of that, though. So.
Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure myself, like who would be a good Freddy. That's kind of difficult. I don't know whether it's someone who, like Kevin Bacon, who's been around, or someone we don't know about that might be an unknown discovered. It's kind of difficult to, picture that. But so.
Yep.
Are there any, since it's Halloween seasonal and more horror movies are coming out, is there anything that you're looking forward to checking out?
Um, hmm. I can't think of anything in particular. I might go see that the new Beetlejuice movie. I kind of like the original. It'd probably be interesting to see what they do with it. Tim Burton's movies have always been kind of hit and miss, I think. But he always does something interesting. So yeah, I might go see that though.
Yeah, that's true. But I always liked Beetlejuice though. I've been waiting years for a sequel to that, and I think they pull out the right time. And it's interesting to see, now that Lydia's grown up and has a daughter and all that. So.
Sure.
And I know that we all know that you're a fan of like Atari and everything. Is there anything? I know you said you did like your own magazine of it or something. Is that still going on, or do you still do anything involved with that?
Oh, I started writing a blog at the beginning of this year for Atari. It's called For the Love of Atari, and I've been doing it monthly. Mm-hmm. I started getting back into retro gaming several years ago, and Atari's the company has been reemerging in probably over the last 5 years. They were kind of pretty much gone for the last few decades, but they never went out of business, and they've been putting out new consoles and products over the last few years, and I guess reemerging is the best word for it. So I always wanted to write about that subject after I started getting back into it, and so I've been writing a blog since the beginning of the year, and yeah, it's fun. Sometimes I'll review a game or review something new that they put out, or just give my thoughts on something. But yeah, I really I like retro gaming. I play and I collect games too. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I know I've asked you that before, and I still haven't thought of that game. I don't know if you had, since you're still doing that, if you happen to come across it. That game where there's like a cow and a UFO above it that's like abducting it, and you got to save it. And if you don't, it like parts of it fall down, like it's mutilated. Have you come across that game recently, or?
I still haven't seen that one, and I'm sure somebody knows about that though. I don't know every game. I know some of them. I know some of them were obscure ones, but there are people much more knowledgeable than I am at this too. So I'm sure it's out there though.
Because it's been bugging me that I'm like, I know I played this game. I couldn't have imagined it. I remember clearly, having the little joystick, and I sometimes I would purposely let the cow go up because it was funny. I was going cut apart. Like I'm twisted. It's like The Sims. I like to play God with them, So what was some of your favorite games that you played recently that you've been doing reviews on?
I reviewed a couple games by the company Games by Apollo. They were a company that put out maybe a dozen cartridges or so, a third-party company for the Atari 2600. I reviewed a couple of their space games. They had one called Space Chase, all one word, that I really liked a lot. Another one called Space Cavern. Both of them have some really nice box art too. Those are the last couple that I reviewed. There were just a couple games that I played back in the day, and I started playing again recently. And I've also been getting into some of the homebrew games that have been put out for the Atari systems. There's a company called Champ Games who have been putting out some really excellent arcade adaptations for the Atari 2600. They're enhanced cartridges. They have more memory, so they can better replicate the arcade game than what they were able to make back in the day. But they put out some really good ones. They did a version of Galaga called Galagon. They did Zookeeper was another arcade game they did a killer version of, and then one of my favorite arcade games called Gorf back in the day. They put out a version called Gorf Arcade, which is almost exactly like the arcade version on the 2600. So I did a blog on that one too.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get back into it. I haven't played any games, whether the classic ones or any other systems. Like I think the last game I played was like Life is Strange, where she can like turn back time and all that. I don't know if you're familiar with any of the Life is Strange. They have different powers. There's different ones. But yeah, I'm more like, I mean, into movies. I've watched so many movies and got to keep up with movies. I don't really.
It's difficult.
Yeah,
It's difficult. I have difficulty finding time to play these things. I have a big collection, and a lot of them I purchased, but still have not popped it in the console yet.
it's like, yeah, I mean, with you, stuff that you're writing, acting, and then other movies that you like to watch and split up spare time. I'm sure it's hard to do
Exactly.
everything at once. That's pretty much all I am. It's like movies, podcasts, work. It's just all.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I think there's like so many stuff on my list that I want to catch up on, and my Tubi list and all that. And so
Right. Yeah, very difficult. Yeah, very difficult. Games the Atari stuff is lower on the list, but I really enjoy it when I do finally get time to play a couple games. So yeah.
And your blogs, are they on your Facebook page, or where can we find those if we'd like to read them?
Oh well, my blog is on the Google platform, Blogspot. It's for the love of Atari.blogspot.com. I think it's one of those long URLs, but yeah, I started it on the Google platform. It's pretty simple to use, and yeah, I used to write a column. They used to call them columns back in the day for my website. My website is still up, and I wrote the column for about 9 years or so, in 2002 till about 2011. It's called Thoughts for the Month, and I used to write about different things, movie related, sometimes reviews, sometimes more generalized thoughts about different things, movies and movie related things. But so it's been nice to go back to writing a little bit to a different subject, though.
All right. So for the love of Atari, I'll after the show, I'll put that in the description if people want to check that out. Some gamers there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's linked on my Facebook page, so people can check it out.
Okay, no problem. I'll just copy it down and get it out there. So yeah, most of the movies that we've been talking about, a lot of them are on Tubi. So if people want to check them out, on Fossum too is another sort of like Tubi, but it's spelled awesome, like it's spelled like awesome. So good stuff. Let's see. So yeah, I think caught up on most of your movies there. Anything else you want to share, or?
Well, yeah, I appreciate you covering a lot of the films that are coming out, and it's very exciting, all the releases, and we've shot quite a number of movies this year, so hopefully next year we'll see a lot more releases. I wish I could tell you about all the new ones, but the distributors like to keep it under wraps. So, but like I said, I do expect one or two movies to come out somewhere around October. That's what I'm hearing. One is one I wrote, and like I said, The Girl Who Wore Yellow Lace, I'm told that's going to be coming out pretty soon. So yeah, look for that. And I'm hoping my next collaboration with Mark, I have another script that I wrote. It's a comedy film. It's inspired by the sex comedies of the 1980s. And we were hoping to go into production on that this summer. I started the process of the production, and we had some complications, so I shut it down a few weeks ago, and we're pushing it back to next summer because it involves a large cast, and there's a lot to it. So I'm hoping to do that by next summer too, as far as my own scripts go. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, comedies are always fun. I know, like, and of course in the horror, it's comedy horror as well. But is this one like more strictly comedy?
Yeah, it's about 95% of it is straight comedy. It's like I said, inspired by it's inspired by a couple of the lesser known sex comedies of one of them, the early 1980s. There's another one that I took inspiration from the late 70s. But in general, it's inspired by those type of wacky movies, silly type sex comedies, and yeah, and there's a drop of a sci-fi element in it, but 95% of it is straight comedy, though. So.
Okay, that sounds fun. Something to do.
Yeah. So we'll see, but like I said, we shot a lot of movies this year, so I'm very excited about those films, and you'll be seeing more stuff come out. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, glad we got to cover a lot. I mean, you've done so much throughout the years. There's so much to talk about. So just people check out Tubi, check out Jeff's Facebook page and keep an eye out for what's coming out. So that'll be
Well,
great.
We'll see you in the stalking, of course. Have you seen the trailer?
Yes, I have. I heard my voice on the trailer and a brief clip of the three of us. So yeah, that was fun. I like that. So they did a good job on that. So yeah, I guess I'll put the link to the trailer for that as well. So cool. Yeah, I can't wait to that release. I know people are going to enjoy that one. So you did a great job on that, and I'm thankful to have been a part of it. So
yeah, you did a good job. Really good job.
I appreciate it. All right. So you have a great night. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
Okay. Yep. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you too.